And we're back, everybody. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite podcast. Edmund, is such a privilege and joy and honor to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Got so much great feedback from your first appearance. Everybody, that was episode 271. We talked about spiritual intercourse. And it was a big hit. And, I just had such a hard time trying to narrow my thoughts down to what I wanted to talk to you about today, or I should say listen from you sharing today, because you just have such a diverse range of expertise and beautiful articulation and recall and depth. But I'm going to do my best. So when we're recording this, it is beginning of December 2025. And actually here I'm in New England. We're in kind of our first ice storm, our first major blizzard right now. So it's very appropriate. It's pitch dark outside. So I would love for you to share with us kind of where you're at with this season of the year. We're just stepping into winter, what all of that means to you, and just share with us your thoughts about this time of year.
Yeah, beautiful. I love following the seasons, and there are two kind of concurrent followings that happen for me. One is in external following, which is the course of the year. Like you said, it's dark. There's an ice storm out here. We just had snow everywhere, so we're just blanketed in snow. Yeah, and so there's a big ski mountain right behind me out the window, and it's Schweitzer's just filled with just big white fluffy snow. And that softening of the planet around where we are, just so the quiet that happens as a result of that feels incredibly nourishing to me, very sacred.
That's true.
And today is Tuesday, and actually on Sunday of this week, so 2 days ago, there is something that can be celebrated as part of the both an exoteric, but certainly an exoteric and esoteric Christian year, which is the Advent. And Advent takes place 4 weeks before Christmas. And in the first week here, the focus is on the soil. It's on mountains and metals and minerals and gemstones. So it's often a time to share with friends and loved ones, family members, with children especially, what wonderful experiences you've had. Do you have a special place on earth that's like a sacred or a power place for you, that's out in nature? And or even in your yard, even in your home, everything that we have is made out of minerals, all the gypsum that's in the walls here. And so there's that externally, that celebration of, do I have a connection with a stone? So for example, a beautiful friend of mine went to Merlin's cave once, and she got told to bring me a stone from Merlin's cave. So she brought back this beautiful black kind of iridescent obelisk looking stone. And that's always been extremely special to me. That was probably 30 years ago now. And so this is a time where I really focus my energy on the incredible power and the magic, really, of that stone. And so telling a story about something that's happened to us related with stones, and then going outside and really honoring nature in that mineral aspect. So that happens for this first week. And then on an inner basis, you can think about the quality of, say, salt in your body. That crystal quality is, salt has a very spiritual basis to it. And the Rosicrucians understood this and worked very consciously with it. And they had, of course, a big practice of what's called the philosopher's stone, which a lot of people thought was turning something into gold. But the real essence of it is a kind of a spiritual gold that is internal. It's not something material, and that process allows a quality of thinking to arise in the body that has never really before been possible since, say, Christian Rosenkreuz in the 15th century. But we don't want to go too far off on that. But those are all things that you could meditate during this week. And then next Sunday, we start into what's called the plant Advent. And so there's a week where we focus on the life force or the etheric force, not just the physical body, but now the energetic body. I love seeing your animals just
Oh,
float.
sorry. Yeah, I have 4 dogs. So
Oh, great. No, I've got dogs and cats. My lab is sitting here right
on
behind,
your foot, right? Probably.
asleep, snoring, ready to be on me whenever.
Uh-huh.
And that's the third week of Advent is the animals, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so in the third week is the soul body or the feeling body, the astral or starry body. That's all the different names for the same thing, which is what's our soul or feeling life, and how do we relate to animals on the planet? How do we relate to the animal soul in us? And then how do we raise that desire and passion to a level that has more purity to it? And then the last Advent is the human Advent, the whole human race. And so what's our right relationship to the human race? And Advent literally means to open up. And as we open up, there's usually wrestling that takes place. So what is it that we're not in right relationship with around our body? That's the question for this week. For next week, what about our subtle energy body? What about the way that we put our energy out to people, or we withhold it from people because of judgment or because of confusion or because of fear or whatever it is, anger? And then the third week is really, what is our relationship to our soul, to our desire body? Are we in right relationship with her? And if not, what practice do we need to engage in order to prepare ourselves for the last week, the human realm? What's my relationship with all human beings? Steiner has this picture that the individuals that we hate the most or are most confused by, that when we fall asleep, they're the first ones that we meet in the spiritual world as falling asleep. And we spend the evening with them in dream time because...
Or a nightmare.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because that's the work. And so that's the whole idea of Advent is a time of opening and wrestling, like Jacob wrestling the angel and always losing, but gaining in strength by losing. And so there's a winning in failure. There's a winning in the wrestling with the angel. And so what happens then is when the solstice comes, when it's the darkest night of the year, it's also the return of that light. But we've prepared ourselves over these weeks to receive that light. We've prepared and we've cleansed and purified each of our bodies as well to receive the return of light. And this is, Steiner has a verse, it's something like, the spirit child within my soul, I feel freed of enchantment. In heart-high gladness has the holy cosmic word engendered the heavenly fruit of hope, which grows rejoicing into worlds afar out of my being's godly roots. And so it's this feeling of, I'm ready to receive because I've done the pieces that I need to do, just like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where he recognized there's an 8-step path to enlightenment. We don't start with enlightenment. We start with purification. We start with a good diet, with exercise, with good sleep, with right relationship, with the right thought patterns and forms that we're putting out into the world. And then we move into preparation inwardly. And only then do we start doing physical postures. And the whole reason for the postures is to prepare ourselves for meditation. It's not we do the postures and then go out into the world, which is what we do in America. Yoga is like one of the 8 legs in this country. But then we move on to breath practices. But breath isn't around breath. It's actually around light. It's actually we're breathing in light. For Steiner, breath is it's kind of a crude process, actually, and thinking is refined breathing. And so the idea is that we're able to notice that prana doesn't just come into the lungs through the air and the chemicals that surround us with nitrogen and oxygen and so forth, but it comes through every pore of the body, and it comes omnidirectionally. It comes from 360 degrees. And that light brings wisdom to us and through us and enlivens at the atomic and molecular level every part of who we are and regenerates us in every moment. So this is that return of the light that we're preparing for in Advent. So that would be a brief picture of what I'm doing right now this week in Advent for the mineral focus.
You're working on the stones this week.
Yep.
Okay, so Explain to us the connection here with I don't know if it's the Christian or the Catholic Advent calendar. Because when you're saying Advent, my upbringing was Christian. So what's the connection there of your 4-week Advent? I mean, that's the same word. You're both using Advent. Is it related?
Yeah, I would say it's the same thing.
Okay.
I don't know what the different practices are that different denominations do, and I would say as long as it's an inner preparation and cleansing for the return of light, then we're on we're doing a similar path, right? All roads up the mountain lead to oneness. So once we all get there, we realize we've all been practicing different things that are the same thing.
Okay. So if it's return of the light, as in maybe the Christ principle, right? We're not talking about preparation for what was considered the birth of the Christ principle on December 25th, the return of the light, but rather you're referring to spring, which is the literal Mother Nature, return of light. Just kind of clarify that for me.
That's a super great question, because the return of the light is not in this particular practice. It's not the Christ light that's the return of.
Okay.
It is the birth of Jesus on the planet.
Okay.
And so Jesus as a human being who was an initiate, who became an initiate, and who through the 12 holy nights, the 13 nights, ascended this ladder from this kind of Jesus nature to a Christ nature. So the birth of the Christ is actually more at Epiphany, which is January 6th. And so from December 25th, January 6th, each step is a step along a kind of a spiritual zodiac. And there's a quality of thinking that you can practice during each one of the holy nights. And it's connected, each one's connected to a part of the body and a way of orienting toward the universe in thought life, that the more you're able to be neuroplastic in envisioning that and working from that frame, you're able then to relate to yourself and to relate to everyone else. So Steiner had a picture that there are 12 predominant thinking types, and in any working group, those 12 would be well to be active. And so if you and I are working together, it'd be good if we each were able to draw upon 6 of them, for example.
Okay.
A third person came in, 4 each. If there are 12 of us, hopefully each of us is carrying one of those thinking paths, those qualities. And hopefully the rest of us are able to welcome those different paths. And so if I'm a materialist, for example, I only see what's in front of me as real. If you're a spiritist, that's the complementary path. You only see what's in front of us as invisible, that the invisible is behind all of this, and that's what's real. How do we relate together? Could we be lovers, right? Could we be
meet in the middle?
Yep. Yeah, we could. It would take some work, but it would take meeting in the middle, as you just said. It would take me giving over the possibility that the invisible does exist, and that for you it's primary. And for you it would say, well, Edmund, I see that you think everything that you see is real, and that's all that's real. And so how can we be together in this? And this is the way to overcome the duality and the kind of divisiveness that's rampant in the world. But also in dating, for example, I work with couples or individuals, they get on these dating apps and they just write a person off if they're red or blue, if they're, whatever it is. It's like, oh, nope, wholesale, I'm writing this person off next because what? I have this huge pool of people? You really don't. I mean, it's really not that big. And people who go on those things start to realize, I'm looking at dozens and I'm ending up with nothing. But how much of that is me? How much of that is me? Right? Rather than me projecting, right, on these things. And what about the possibility of how can I be more open to other points of view? And that's what these holy nights are for, is opening yourselves to all of those points of view. And so I just gave you 2, like the materialist and the spiritualist, but there's also the idealist and the realist would be kind of on the horizon of The idealist says that ideas are real and they probably come from beings. Ideas have to be attached to beings. But a realist says, I only see what's real as what I can see out in the world. And so how does an idealist, like a Platonic point of view, map onto a realist? And there are representatives in the world for each of these viewpoints. And so I just think it's a beautiful opportunity for us to overcome divisiveness by inviting those sort of polarities together and finding common ground. And that's a lot what the Holy Nights are all about. This is the whole idea of the Christ community that Mary Magdalene and the other Marys were instrumental. And this is what's celebrated in the summertime. I think we talked in the summer, about these communities that can come together through a willingness to bracket their own beliefs or their own views, their own thinking streams, and get to a point where they can really enter into a thought stream that somebody else is representing. That is incredible power, quite frankly. That's very powerful, to be able to be in the world and to adopt a point of view that previously was anathema to me. And now I'm just like, what parts of this can I be nourished by? What parts of this can I say yes to? I don't say yes to much of like everything in toto anywhere, like not even my wife or my son or myself. Like I don't say yes to every part of me all the time. There are parts I go, no, right?
Yeah.
So why would I think that I need to do that for someone else, right? That I would need to have a full yes for everything they're bringing. That's just not going to happen.
So this is so interesting you're talking about this, because obviously it's very, very current in this day and age with, cancel culture and social media wars and Twitter X fights and all this crazy. I think what it comes down to is like the whole triggered thing, right? When we have when someone really feels they're right, okay, for lack of a better term, no, this is the logical right thing. And they get really upset that the other person, let's say, is taking a totally different point of view, but they can't, it's just too uncomfortable to stay in that space with the other person that has the opposing view. And that's why they just write them off. They just like wash their hands of it. Like, I can't deal with you type attitude. You're too crazy. You're too out there. You're too right. You're too left. You're too wrong. How can we get to the place where we can hold that tension of the opposites? Maybe it is just hold that uncomfortableness of, I'm not going to lose me. Like I still feel I'm right, but I can still make space for you. And, and lack of a better term, entertain you, like just here with you and keep my boundary, but not lose myself but not have to completely write you off. Like we have no training or knowledge or experience or education on how to dance, right? That middle line. It's either all or nothing kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. And so there actually is, on that wheel that I was describing of the 12 different viewpoints, there is a viewpoint called phenomenalism. And there were a whole bunch of phenomenological philosophers like Maurice Merleau-Ponty and Husserl and these folks who had a picture that you could have a viewpoint, but they were all French, so it was hypaché. It was a French word, where meaning that they would bracket it. They could set it aside, like you just said. I know I'm not going to let go of this viewpoint in this moment, so I can set it aside. I don't have to be attached to it because that's actually small in terms of the world of thinking.
Yeah.
And then what they suggest is a true scientific attitude would be one of openness. And one of trying on the other person's viewpoint and feeling into it. Good debaters often do this. They'll give the other person the opportunity to represent their own viewpoint, and they'll represent the opposite viewpoint, and they'll debate it as if they're truly supporting it. And it's very transformational. So that's one exercise where you can say, okay, let me take your viewpoint about the way that we should keep house together, right? Or the way that we should be in relationship with each other. What are the most important things in relationship to you? You give me your top 3, I'll give you my top 3. Good. Now you represent my top 3 and do it ardently, do it with passion. I'll represent your top 3 and we'll go back and forth arguing for the other's top 3. So we're getting out of ourselves, and you're already laughing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Feel like there's some playfulness here.
Yeah.
There's some flexibility of soul, and we don't have to be so darn serious about the things that don't even know are true. Like, what do we really know?
Right. Who knows?
Tell me who's throwing something down that's going, yep, everybody says that's 100% correct. Yep. It's a mystery. It's in the end, it's a mystery. And so our holding on to these things, Rilke says, all holders on are stranglers, It's a weak position to hold on to something that in truth, none of us know what's right. And some of the highest philosophies, the law of one, for example, says there is no right or wrong. It's all a dance. And so we're holding the position.
But what is it about this tricky thing we have called emotions that just completely hijack our rational frontal brain? Like this, when someone gets, again, triggered, right? And it happens with me, like, they say your family, right? They're the ones who installed your buttons. That's why they can push them. Like Thanksgiving just went by. I won't name names, but a family member and every time I pray every morning before, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep calm. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to stay in my heart. I'm not going to lose my marbles. I'm not going to get upset, all that. And then every time it's like I do really good for a couple hours and then it's like, boom. So, why does that happen? Like, how can we, because it's fine when it's like you're not really that attached to something, right? You have an easier time. It's when you get really, and it relates to what we were saying before about like Twitter feeds and stuff. Like people get emotional and they just lose their marbles,
Yeah, my experience of myself is the reason that happens is when I lose metacognition or when I lose mindfulness, when I lose perspective, right? And so if usually I find that I'm not breathing anymore.
For sure.
I find I'm full of judgment and it's not about myself. It's about
righteousness.
And righteousness.
I'm right.
I'm right. Yep. Therefore, everyone else is wrong.
That's right.
And so, restoring the capacity to recognize emotions are literally just energy in motion, and that I can name whatever emotion I'm feeling as a start to bring that cognition back online and just say, got a whole lot of hatred and rage coming up right now. I just noticed that. And I can either say it out loud or I can whisper it under my breath while I'm eating turkey, whatever it is. But it's important to presence it, to acknowledge it, and actually to welcome it. This is the thing. When we start to feel the thing, the emotion, it feels overwhelmingly strong. And so we're already trying to manage ourselves.
For sure. And you don't want to feel it.
What happens is what we resist persists. So it grows stronger in the defending against it. And everybody's watching my face grow red and me get inwardly apoplectic and my eyes start to light on fire and they're going, this is going to be fun. This is always
smoke coming out of your ears.
And so interrupting that neural pathway by taking a breath, by naming, wow, I feel incredible rage and I totally want to lash out right now. And just imagining that to its nth degree. Like how could I heighten that in my mind? Just to imagine standing up, flipping the table over, flipping everybody off, exploding, throwing dishes and breaking crystal, right?
Yep.
Slamming the door, saying I'm gone forever. Let's just bring this to like, what's the end? How would this end out in sort of the worst, best way possible? And then all of a sudden, I start to crack a little smile because I realize that's the end game for all human beings is let's blow each other up.
And then what?
And then what? Then there's no more game anymore. There's no more anger because there's no body to be angry in. There's no more earth to be angry.
But you were right. But you pull up.
God, that's exactly right. I hit the button first, so I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh man. So, okay, this takes tremendous self-control, awareness, and discipline. Because when you're in that emotion, it is an energy emotion, it's strong current, and you have to pull it back, like that analogy of the horse and rider, right? Like the emotion and the body being the horse and the higher.
Yeah, I don't know that it takes self-control because my feel when I try to control it, that's when it blows up in my face. I think for me in that moment, it takes acceptance. It takes self-acceptance that, wow, I still have amazing hatred and raging emotion for my mother. And here it is right now.
But you have to control it to not lash it out.
Well, I don't know that I have to control it so much as like right in the moment realize, okay, I accept that I have hatred for my mom right now. And that doesn't mean I have to act on it. It doesn't mean I have to say anything to her about it.
You're just acknowledging it.
But it is important for me to acknowledge, to accept, even to welcome it for myself and to say, like, what's my learning here? What's my opportunity? Because the only thing I can guide is in myself. I'm not going to change my mom calling me a fanatic because I'm open to spirituality, which, by the way, was real.
No, because I know you were really close with your mom.
I was, but there was one piece, there are all pieces, right? And so, so when she says, that, yeah, not bad for a fanatic, and that's real for her, it's like, yeah, because she was raised Catholic and she had a particular frame, and I went outside of that frame, and now you're a fanatic, and recognizing like, okay, that's where she's coming from and living, and that's right for her. She was extremely loving and caring to all human beings, and so that map of the territory worked for her. And it feels a little threatening perhaps for her to extend the bounds, even though she also was highly intuitive. And so there's some cognitive dissonance there because I saw that she would have these, she would call, she used to call, like, it was crazy all the time. She had, because we had a connection when my wife and I were in the middle of making love, she would call. It would be consistent. It would be like, yeah, it'd be like, hey, how's it going? And we'd be like, well, we're not answering.
Yeah.
Back then we had answering machines. Right. Sure, right? You could hear who was talking.
Leave a message.
Yeah, please leave a message.
Yeah.
But it was this feeling of like, I would say to her, Mom, yeah, we're definitely connected, but like there are ways we're connected that it'd be better not to be.
Right.
Here's one of them.
Boundaries.
When you feel a connection like that, save that.
Yeah.
So we're busy.
That's intense, though. I mean, just that you're that connected with your mother.
Oh, she was always very open, sensually and sexually. She loved life, and she didn't limit that in herself. And so,
that's
it's a gift, but it's also, it's like, yeah, she could sense sensuality. And there's actually on the wheel, there's a sensual nature or a sensualist, which is right next to the materialist. And it's between the materialist and the phenomenalist.
And this wheel is which wheel?
This 12-fold wheel of thinking.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That we opened up with. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you have materialism right at 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, it's this sensualism or a sensist who says, what my senses perceive is real. And Steiner had a picture that we have not 5 senses, but 12. And so you can take your development of the senses all the way through into perceiving the other person in their entirety. And the way you do that is to permeate them. We had talked about like the whole idea of sacramental intercourse. That's what that is not am I just now entering into your thought life in terms of, okay, let's say you're a spiritist and I'm a materialist. I let go of mine. I bracket it that I'm a materialist. I enter into your spiritual thought life, but I also then enter into your feeling life. And this is obviously with your blessing, with your permission. You never do that unless someone invites you in. Never, ever.
Yep.
That would be, the other path. But then we can enter into the other's body and experience life. Kate Bush has a beautiful song about this. It's called Running Up That Hill. But before it was
compartmentalized the
but that wasn't actually what it was called. It was a deal with God, but EMI wouldn't let her use that because they said Italy and France and all these Catholic places won't allow you. They won't play it. They won't play your song if you put God in the title. But the actual name of the song is A Deal with God, where you get to switch places. And what she's talking about is exactly Steiner's 12th sense, which is what he calls the I of the other, or the ego, I being of the other, that you enter in fully to the whole nature of, like, I enter in fully into you and look back toward myself and see myself in a whole new way. And you can do the same.
But how do you actually do that?
Openness, a level of openness and reverence for the fact that I understand that we are actually in unity. We're a singularity.
Right.
We aren't any different. The law of one looks at this. When you reach a high enough level of consciousness, you actually don't see a difference between entities.
Yeah.
They're all waves on a harmonic. They're all a frequency, and some are higher. There's a color discrepancy between them. There's movement. There's a dance. This is the dance. It's so the right or wrong is just a different color and frequency, right? When I think I'm right about something, and so what it is it's a harmonizing that takes place, and it's a willingness to let go of the sense that I am an I, that I'm a separate body, or even if I weren't embodied, that I'm a separate being. I'm not. We're intimately connected. We always have been since the start of creation, because the start was singular, and we'll come all the way back around to that place where we're singular again. And we have moments of it where we can experience that now. And that moments is what I'm talking about. We have these kinds of moments of, it's so funny. It's hard to talk about because it's like a moment of becoming truly who I am by being you.
Whoa. Okay. Because you're expanding more of yourself to allow the rest of it in by being the other person.
Even more than I'm expanding myself to let you in, I'm expanding myself to be you and let you be me.
Right.
It's a real flexibility. It's an incredible flexibility of soul.
Okay. And however, it takes both people to invite it and welcome it. And
Absolutely.
yeah. It won't work if one person's not into it.
No, I mean, it's like reading somebody's aura.
Right.
Those of us who can see color or see past lives never, ever look into that or see it unless it's asked for by the individual. It would be an infringement on freedom, and it would be, again, you'd end up walking a very different path that way, because you end up being more intellectual and manipulative and control oriented.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between what a lot of people call an intuitive or like a very low level psychic. A low level psychic may say things to you that the soul says, no, I wouldn't have shared that. I would not have, the soul of the one who's hearing it. But an intuitive gets the information, but also gets, this is something that can be shared, that this individual can actually, it's ripe for them to work with. And so be very careful about what comes through, and discernment of what can be shared. And that discernment piece is why common sense is very important, and a sense of groundedness. That's why this mineral week of Advent is essential.
Right.
This is
week.
Yeah. How do we anchor? We anchor in the mineral realm. We by a place in nature. And now we can start to stretch into the energy body, the plant body, the ether body next week. It's more subtle, but it's invisible. The rest of this is all like, come back, we're embodied. Ground, feel your feet.
Yep. So back to the relationship. So I think what a lot of people struggle with too is this concept of the things that set you off and bother you about the other are truly only projections of yourself. That's a hard thing for people to really accept as true. Like, as in, nope, I'm not like that at all. This is why this drives me crazy about this person. Like, if anything, I swing the other way because that quality drives me nuts so much. I'm the opposite. Like, so tell us about this business of it's really all us looking at us anyway. When it's like really like, you could just take an extreme, like a murder or something. Well, no, I don't murder anybody. So that is not me projecting. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the murderer, for example, if we have a kind of hatred or fear or strong reaction against a murderer, what's often the case, I mean, the definition of really a trigger is that it's unconscious.
Okay.
That already lets us know it's living out of the realm of perception for us, out of the realm of being able to be viewed. It usually erupts under unfortunate circumstances when we don't want it to. That's called our shadow.
Okay.
Sometimes it's called the double, the doppelganger. And so these are all different names for this quality of catalyst that we've actually, in many cases, we've designed this catalyst for ourselves. We've chosen these people to have human encounters with. We've chosen our parents in their particular configurations of how they stuff energy, emotions, and how they express them, what their thought life is like, in order to find a way toward balancing that all out in ourselves. And so when we are so-called triggered, it would be helpful to change our language and say when we trigger ourselves.
Right.
Not only when we trigger ourselves, but when we trigger ourselves and actually are grateful for recognizing that something's bubbling up in consciousness that's terribly uncomfortable, but that we designed that. We designed ourselves to trigger ourselves. We made agreements with people before we were on the planet to say, would you be willing to trigger me? Do you love me enough that you'd be willing to trigger me in this way during our little sojourn on the planet down there? And you say, Edmund, I'd love to do that. I'd be willing to do that for you. And I say,
and the purpose would be for what?
To balance whatever it is that I haven't refined. So when I'm
to evolve the soul.
When I'm in spirit land, I see all the parts and pieces. It's a bright light showing on all the little dark pieces. Down here, I'm working with a very tiny candle in dark. It's the reverse. But I can't do the work up there because I can see all the work that needs to be done. You can't see it and do it. That would be like knowing all the cards that everybody's playing with. There's no game, right?
How do we get these concepts of like, even like what you just said, like, where is this come from the work in the mystery schools that all of a sudden someone gets this download of, I mean, just this whole concept of like, we chose our parents, we chose the relationships, like, we had, our soul had an agreement, the soul family and all that. Like, how do we get these consensuses of like, that this is kind of how the game is played? Like, where did that come from? Like,
that comes from individual experience of, there's an agreement that we make with ourselves that we're going to forget, that we'll take a draw to forgetfulness or draft when we come to this planet. And then we can work on the remembering of that, of penetrating the veil of forgetfulness, which is also called the law of confusion or the law of free will. It's all the same thing. And to the extent that we're able to do that, I think I'd mentioned to you last time, my wife and I looked at each other and clearly saw that she was female and I was male.
Yeah.
Previous lifetime that we had. So how did we know it's a previous lifetime and not just a fantasy or some kind of a hallucination or something? And a lot of the way to suss that out is to not just have one anomalous experience. That's very idiosyncratic, but to look at it scientifically and to see that over time, more than one experience occurs. And also to notice, is that coming from something else that I wasn't fully conscious of that I looked at, like on the television or with the news, or, when we used to read newspapers, did I see a picture? Did I read a headline?
Yeah.
But he say something to me. Did I have a dream about something? It's really important to disambiguate all of the stimuli that come toward me and get a sense of, okay, over time, I'm getting a consistent picture that I was with this person before this. And it's not here that it takes place. It's very much in a heart thinking.
Very visceral. Yeah.
And there's a feeling of certainty around it that it goes beyond that feeling of being right or wrong. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't even need to say I'm right about this. I don't need to have a conversation about it with anybody.
Yeah. That's cool.
And so it's kind of the saying that when we talk about things, it's because we no longer experience them. And so we live in a world now where we talk about so much. We're sort of podcast gluttony because we've lost our connection to just about everything. But the cool thing is that, like, to ourselves, to our sense of the divinity, to each other, we have this ability, though, on the bright side of things, to be more free than we've ever been before, to be more of an individual than we've ever been before, not to be tied to Catholicism or to a political spectrum or to a nation or even to the human race, but to think more freely than we've ever thought before. Now, does that come with a price? Yeah, it's called the aloneness, which some people experience as loneliness. But there's a clear sense that if you're able to recognize that loneliness is actually a movement toward freedom. Steiner talks about something he calls the consciousness soul age. And what he describes it as is a kind of anti-socialism, an antipathy toward all things. And what the gift of that is, there are a lot of challenges, but loneliness is one of them. Skepticism is one of them. Projecting judgment all over everybody and everything, like vomit all the time, is one of them. The gift of it is that we come back to ourselves, we're thrown back on ourselves, and we have the opportunity to really look in the deepest way possible at who are we? What are we here for? What are the parts we still need to work on? And that's the consciousness aspect of consciousness soul. And because we're in that time, that we're able to see that more clearly in these sort of hundreds of years period than ever before, we're able to have understanding that can move toward freedom, that can move toward intuition, that can actually move toward us choosing to relate and have connection with each other in freedom. And there's so much more power and bliss in that when you and I choose to connect with each other, like we did before the podcast, for example. We both shared a prayer. We both shared an openness that whatever gets shared speaks to your readers, speaks to your listeners, that they get fed and nourished by that they get practices out of it that will help them evolve on their own, right? Become more peaceful or more loving or in relationship, whatever it is. And that comes out of a space of true, or let's not say true, but let's say more capacity, more possibility of freedom, because we're both choosing it from a place of very much being shut up in ourselves in the world that we're in today. And so when we choose to come out, it's a different kind of quality than there ever has been on the planet before.
Wow.
And that's the side that we're not often looking at, because when you can stay in darkness and silence, that's where strength of soul really arises. And yes, there are these opportunities to feel fear, like I'm always going to be alone. You hear these voices. Yeah. I'm always going to be alone. I'm not worthy. I'll never such and such. And when we're hearing these, we have to ask ourselves, who is the I who's speaking this? It's not the witness. It's not the soul. It's not the spirit of who we are. Spirits and souls don't talk like that unless they're trying to co-opt other people and negatively galvanize them.
I never thought of it like that. They don't talk like that. You're right.
No. When you hear your soul,
who's saying that?
Who is speaking that?
Fear.
Yeah. And Rumi has a beautiful poem where he says, all day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from? What am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea, but my soul's from elsewhere, and I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern, and when I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. But until then, he says, I'm like a bird sitting in this aviary from another continent. But who is speaking these words with my mouth right now? Who looks out with my eyes? Who hears with my ears? What is the soul?
Wow.
I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't go home that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. And then he says, this poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. Who is the I that he's talking about when he says, I never know what I'm going to say? It's this
Small self?
I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah.
But it's worth asking the question.
All right.
That voice comes in that says, you're always going to be lonely. You're not worth, you're overweight. You're not smart enough. You're not disciplined enough. Yeah. All those thou shalts, nots, all those lesser thans. I don't have an experience of anybody's soul talking to them like that.
Right. So let's flip it. What would the soul say as to all those scenarios, if you can remember everything you just said? I'll be alone. I'm too old. I'm overweight or whatever. Like, what would the soul say? And what would the soul sound like instead of those phrases?
Right. The beautiful part is the first thing the soul would sound like is silence and spaciousness, and sacredness and slowness. It would invite us to slow down. It would invite us to really investigate the quality of that voice that's coming toward us and ask ourselves, is that a familiar voice? Have I heard that voice before? When did I first start hearing that voice?
And that makes me sad.
Yes.
It's like you're judging yourself. That's so sad.
Yeah. We start recognizing that it's come from our personality, from the ego.
And the pain behind it. You feel the pain behind it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But then we can take the next step, which is to feel that fully, to really, in a way, to harvest the pain of that.
Yeah.
And the soul then very gently invites, what's the opportunity for learning here, for integration, for actually courage arising, and for moving into a space where we're willing to feel that in its fullness so that it integrates on its own. And there's Gregory Bateson had a wonderful thought around self-organizing, and Rudolf Steiner did too. This, you ask, where do these things come from? What I do is I listen for enough things that corroborate my own experience from individuals who've walked the path ahead of me. And so in this particular case, Bateson was a brilliant psychotherapist, really a communicator, and he recognized that what he was seeing is that when you're given time and space and you give that to yourself, that organisms are self-organizing, that they lawfully organize themselves. So all of our trying and it's sort of our mechanistic reaching to grow and to be different and to drop different aspects of ourselves, this is like a soul tinkering. The soul just kind of goes, no, that's not actually how it works. You're just digging the hole deeper, and you're going to have repercussions of this kind of self-control that you're trying to do, or disciplining yourself, because there's almost a self-hatred of the way you are right now, that you're trying to get rid of some aspect of who you are. But that's like getting rid of some aspect of creation, as if something in creation could be gotten rid of, even, or should be. It's a misunderstanding that the person...
It's almost violent.
It is violent.
Yeah.
So
I'm feeling like it's violent to yourself.
Yeah. So again, this would come from ancient yogi, from Patanjali, recognizing that do no harm is the first part, not just for a physician who's working with others for healing, but for yourself. So do no harm in terms of the way that you think about yourself, feel about yourself, or actions you take, because you're divine. You're part of the Creator, and we're just here to experience. We're not here. You can judge if you want, because that's part of creation. That's welcome. And there's a possibility to open the doors of perception if we don't narrow the lens through judgment.
It's amazing, because what's coming to me is why are we so mean to ourselves? What's coming to me is the soul is trying to get us to love ourselves better, and it's like, what where did all this come from that we got down this other road of this is how I'm supposed to treat myself, like, and then of course, how can you not project that on others, right? I mean, which brings full circle to what I said before, which is where you were taking us, is when I asked you about projecting. There you go, Okay.
Yeah, we're a wonderful hall of mirrors, all for each other, and then when we really are able to accept that and that I'm seeing my own consciousness because we're one, reflected in this other right now, and it's uncomfortable because I didn't know that was there. I don't want it to be there.
Right.
I don't feel good about it, and then I
don't know what to do about it.
and I
So
feel,
this is a huge thing. So can you talk about that for us? Because even everything you say, like, I'm too old, I'm overweight, I'll be lonely forever. Like, I think we get stuck because it's like, okay, I'm on the dating sites, I'm going to the gym, like I'm trying to do it, but I still feel these are my fears. Like, and then you get hopeless, helpless, and depressed because that's when you feel like you can't do anything to change the situation and what you're doing is not working. So what do we do with that?
yeah. Boy, there are lots of different possibilities. I mean, the first thing that came to me when you talked about that is there's a woman named Byron Katie who has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so the first thing she would ask is that true? And do you know that that is absolutely, irrevocably true, beyond the shadow of a doubt? And how do you know? And if you don't, then what would be the reversal of that? So you're smiling, so you already know, that there's a process.
The reversal. I forget about the reversal.
The reversal.
The reversal.
Yeah, so first,
that's very important.
That is what he calls equanimity. He has 6 practices that he talks about that are protective practices for the individual for any kind of spiritual practices that you do, especially things where you're not evolved enough on the spiritual path to actually recognize the effects on your subtle bodies, but you're still practicing them because you got it off the web, you got it off some podcast somewhere. I don't know, Joe Dispenza, whatever. Like you have to be able to understand the effects of what's happening for you. And so given the fact that he knew this advent was coming of artificial intelligence, and so much information with no discernment, and the human intellect just grabbing at it like a big bag of goodies on Halloween, and just stuffing the self with it, like, oh, let's do this practice. The third practice is around what he calls equanimity, but it's not just being balanced and equanimous. There's a process to getting there, which is to say, when I have the thought or the feeling on one side, I always add the other. So if I say to myself, God, Edmund, you're just like, you're fat, you're ugly, you're old, you're stupid, and you're weak, right? So then I give the counterbalance to that, which is I say, I'm strong. It can't be categorically so that I'm 100% weak, or I wouldn't be able to even have that thought. I wouldn't be able to think if I were just completely weak. I wouldn't be able to think anymore. When I've been super sick, I can't think. So I know that, right? And then to say you're ugly. Well, I mean, parts of me may be ugly, but all of me can't be ugly. There has to be something that's not ugly. There has to be a look in my eyes, or some way that I say something that people find sweet or attractive. So I find those places in myself that are, the complement of these other things that I'm saying.
Okay.
But here's the tricky part. It also is important that when you feel joy, that you also add sadness.
That's the thing. That's the catcher right there.
Because otherwise we're in spiritual bypass. And so individuals who want to add always the positive to the negative, but not the negative to the positive, are erring in a major way. The practice won't work.
And the objective of doing that is what?
I love that question.
Okay.
The objective of that is because you're starting to realize, oh, I'm fat. Oh, I'm not fat. Oh, there's an I who's looking at me being fat and looking at me being not fat. So now there are 3 things going on. I'm noticing that I have a story here. I'm noticing I can add another here, and I'm noticing that I'm noticing.
Right.
And so what starts to happen is I recognize, oh, I'm neither of these two things. I'm not fat or not fat. I'm an I.
You're in the middle.
I'm in the middle. And this is called the middle path or the middle way. This is called spaciousness. It's called freedom. It's recognizing I'm not in this hamster wheel of am I this or am I this? I'm both. I'm neither. And so this, what's called the third space arises. It's the middle way. And this is actually this time of year with this whole idea of like, what is the Christ consciousness? That is the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness recognizes there's a part of ourselves that wants to contract and shrink and shrivel into nothingness. And there's a part of ourselves that wants to expand and become goddess-like and just be like an angel before our time. And somewhere in the middle is the I being at the current state of like right where I am right now. And it's enough. I says, it's enough. I'm enough. I don't need to be lesser than, and I don't need to be incredibly expansive. And I notice that when I try to be too expansive, my lesser than comes in to balance me out.
God, that's so true.
And I notice when I start to feel lesser than, my expansiveness comes in. And I start to feel arrogant as a way to try to fill myself back out. And so noticing that as I head toward the middle, there's a tendency to come to the other side. And I can also just notice being enough in this space of what's called interest. The word interest means to be between.
Interest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Inter means between. So you have interaction right now or intercourse. And essa means to be. And so when we're having a dialogue, we're actually coming out of ourselves toward the other person, but we're not overwhelming them. We're not inundating them. We're in a space between the two of us, in a free space. So I'm letting you be you and you're letting me be me. And the interest that we have in the material that's coming through us is in that space between.
Wow.
It would be the same thing as if I were to come too far into you, if I were just like fawning all over you and like, oh, that's
my space.
Yeah. You already start to feel that. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that's called sympathy, where I fall asleep into you. That's called actually falling in love. That's how we fall in love. We lose our center, we come out of ourselves, and we wholly project the highest and best parts of ourselves onto you. And I say, I could never have that. I could never achieve that. Therefore, I need to be in relationship with this woman because at least I'll be close enough to that. And, maybe it'll rub off on me. Now, the opposite side of that sympathy is antipathy, where I just look at you and I go, nope, never. I'm always just with me. Like you get old enough. Like I talk to a lot of folks who've like, I've lived alone for long enough, and I get on these dating sites and I'm like, nope, I'm not willing to give up anything for my lifestyle in order to be with this woman. And I'm just like, well, then you're going to be alone.
For sure.
So
I hear it too.
But there's that feeling of, and that's antipathy. That's like,
antipathy.
Nope. And so in between those two
I've heard that word before.
Is empathy. And empathy is the space of interest. That's the space that's between you and me in a balanced way. To be empathic, a lot of times you hear like, oh, he's an empath or she's an empath, as if they're overly sensitive and out of balance. None of that is true. I mean, I see these things with Jung being popped out on the internet, and all of this stuff is so sensationalized that empathy is a place of balance. Interest is a place of balance. I have enough willingness to come out of myself toward you, and I also bring myself toward you. The picture of that is like the birth of Jesus on the 25th, moving through those 13 stages of consciousness. That's what each one of those levels of thought is, from materialism to spiritualism. At the same time, that Christ energy is working in a reverse path. It's descending into the body of that initiate Jesus, coming from the highest point down into the human point until that presence, that principle, is able to penetrate even the secrets of the bones, which is kind of cool because we're in that week. We're in the mineral week. This is the week of the bones. And
The minerals are in the bones.
yeah, one of the deeds that Christ did was he consciously penetrated the secrets of the human skeleton.
What do you mean by that? The secrets.
Well, it's one of the deepest secrets that there is the bones are so-called the most dead part of the body, but they also are the maker of the most alive part of the body, the blood. And the blood is the bearer of the higher self, or the higher I being. The blood is the most perceptive organ we have in the body. Right now in this moment, it's constantly checking every aspect and reporting it back to this incredible central organ.
And regulating, right?
Yes. And so it's balancing and regulating all of these things. And so this is what Christ was able to do, is make conscious the connection to the skeleton. If you were to ask yourself, if I close my eyes, unless you have, God forbid, a bone disease, but all you're feeling then is the excruciating pain. It's one of the most painful illnesses there is to have some kind of scleroticism. But Christ was able to penetrate the living nature of not only the human skeleton, but also the earth. And so that connection to being able to revitalize the mineral realm from the deepest level, from this highest level of this Christ principle, which is a far future consciousness that we are able to develop, a life spirit consciousness or a spirit human consciousness. We will get there. And it'll take a while. So this being has just walked those steps and was able to willingly come back through without fearing that I'll lose sort of my whatever, right? My spiritual power.
Wow. Incredible. The secrets of the bones. I'm going to look into that. I never heard that expression. Before we move off this topic, let's go back to the online dating, because I know I'm going to have so many people that want me to go there with you, with your expertise. And you mentioned that some of your clients too. Being single in this day and age is it's different. A lot of people, we're not going to. I used to hear the saying, human beings need three places. They got work, they got home, and then a third thing. That used to be a church, right? A community center. Then it was the gym, the health club, in the 80s or whatever. And now a lot of people feel lost, like we've lost that third place. And it's, going to parties, having parties. I mean, this just doesn't really happen anymore. So we've got all the online dating and the apps. What is your take on the online dating world, and what are you finding with your clients? And because I would say about half our listeners are single, so they definitely would need your expertise on that, navigating the online dating world.
Yeah. I mean, that's this third space you're talking about, I think, is the tricky part, because most of these folks they're intelligent and healthy. The bar is not going to be the place where they want to go. But depending on how large the town or city is that they're in, there are actually a lot of activities that people go to that are, healthy activities. There could be a dance class, there could be, some yoga classes have more of a community-minded feel to them, where people have conversations before and after.
Yeah.
And they go out to tea together, and so really what you're looking for, and there are tea houses, for example, which is very different than a bar. And a lot of people I know that want to have a tea house, have it not for the tea, but for the community connection.
Well, that's kind of what happened with Starbucks, right?
Yes.
Right. That was the beginning of the whole little coffee, and people bring their computers there and work there all day. And it's like, so much for running in and getting your coffee and running out. But yes, Steve.
Exactly. Yeah. So it shows that there is a need to be around other human beings. Yeah. Even for people who are so-called, working from home. Now they're working from a coffee place.
Yep.
And not just Starbucks, but many other coffee places. So that's one thing. if you can find something that engages you in person with other human beings, and there is some kind of a learning that takes place as a result of it, whether it's a book club or some kind of a spiritual study. Some of the younger people I work with that are single, they surprise me because they say, "Oh, I'm either in a Bible study or I've started one," but it's a whole new way that they're coming together. They have an openness to things that they talk about with me that is not typical of what Bible study has been in the past. And so they're using that as a foundation and a way to come together. But the conversations that they're able to have are far beyond what's contained in the Old or the New Testament, for example. And so then the other opportunity is, what is it that you could initiate, that you could create as a group where people come together? Maybe you start it monthly. One of the things my wife and I do is we have games nights, for example, where we cards or we play board games. But there are cool games that aren't just like stupid games, right?
Yep.
I mean, word games are fun. We can play all those as well, right? Sure. Scrabble and Taboo and all of these things. But there are games like Compatibility, for example. Compatibility is played with 4 people, and you and I play across from each other, and then another 2 people play across from each other. You don't have to be a couple. You can just be 4 people that you invited to a party. So you have dinner, and then you have these cards, and there's a topic, and you and I are trying to connect with each other and choose the 5 cards that we think they're picture cards related to that topic, and put them in order of the most important to the least important in the 5. So we're rank ordering them, and then we turn them over and we see how connected are we with these cards. And it's just incredible because what I have found in the world today is that people have so much more clarity and intuition than they think they have. They just, I think as the amount of coming back to oneself comes in, the amount of connectedness that's in potential is off the charts, but people aren't recognizing it because they're not actually getting together like this. So Compatibility is a beautiful game that helps to exploit that. There's another incredible game from Findhorn called the Transformation Game. And I not only work with clients with that, but I recommend, again, you get together in a group of 4 folks, and you do this activity where you move from the physical to the emotional to the mental to the spiritual level with a playing focus in mind. So it's called a game, but it's really like what kind of partner should I be looking for, and what's in my way? So you could play it with that intention. These games are like, I don't know, they're probably $30-$35 or something, but I've been using that game for 40 years on my own, with my wife, with private clients.
Wow.
And it's largely unknown. So it's great that you're asking this question, because these games, board games, are out there.
They facilitate,
they facilitate
transforming game. Okay.
The transformation game.
Oh, transformation game.
It was created in Findhorn in Scotland, in the intentional community there. And you can be certified to use it therapeutically.
Wow.
Yeah. So it comes with
I have to check that out.
Yeah, it comes with a book if find someone who's able to do that. And then you're just consciously putting that out. I mean, if you're in a town and you don't have 3 other people in that town who want to do something like this, you might as well give up the dating game. Because you're not bringing nothing to the table then.
Right.
I mean, if you got to be willing to be authentic and vulnerable, about yourself in the company of others. And even if you don't end up dating anybody in that group, you guys are going to become friends.
Right. And a lot of it is just companionship, frankly. I mean, yes, intimacy, love, all that, romance, of course, sex. But, a huge part of our needs is just, companionship. People to share.
Shared interests.
Yeah.
Shared interests. Absolutely.
Okay, but then just to close this loop, but the online dating, that's, it's so artificial, right? And it's so, you're, the opposite of embodied. I've heard you say before how when you first started working as a therapist, you were expertise in embodiment and then all that. And then COVID hit and you had to totally pivot to go online and everything was over Zoom and stuff. And you were like this embodiment guy, like, what's happening? So that's incredible, that story. So how can we navigate when it's so removed and artificial? And, you know, a lot of people like the barrier of the online. They feel safer, right? They just want to be a pen pal forever. You know, it's like, you know what I mean? And have discretion to know, like for me, it's like, it's all about, you can tell a lot from the way someone communicates their email. If they emailed you, what they say in their email, like the tone, all that. But I don't know, just are there any tips to navigating the online space?
You can tell a lot, but you also can't tell a lot. And this is the challenge of emails and texting is there's no soul or emotional content there. There's no body language. There are no pheromones to
Smell.
tell you if you smell good or not. If you don't smell good, we're already done. I mean, let's stop at appetizers, you know? You're not going to find that out until you have a human encounter. So as long as you're feeling like this person is vetted by this company that's running this thing, right, online, and you're safe, you're going to be in public anyway, and you're going to, you know, you can protect yourself and you have a good sense of good instinct of what's right. Go and sit down with them and have tea. You don't have to even have a cup of coffee. Have a cup of coffee. Keep it simple and make the contact. Because what I'm seeing a lot is that people are protecting behind the sort of firewall of texting, and then they're judging from texting, judging from how long it takes and what they're sharing and what they're not sharing. And it's like, oh my God, are you overthinking this? You know, if you just sit down with that person, you're going to know. And that's a funny thing when they finally go, okay, fine, you know, Edmund, I'll go do it. And so they do. And within a couple minutes, they're just like, oh, hell no. Right. Or they're like, oh, wait a minute. There's here. Or there's like, I'm not interested in you sexually, but I like you. We laugh together. We have some common interests, and I wouldn't mind continuing to hang out with you and take a walk and whatever. And if that works for you, great. And if it doesn't, great.
Okay, so what you just said is an important piece, though, because a lot of it is when you know within a few minutes, if it's just you even in real life, if you're attracted to the person and just want to get to know them. But how about the whole, letting them down politely and kindly? I don't know, Edmund. I can't see a lot of women saying what you just said because, I don't know, you just feel bad, right? But you don't want to lie, and you definitely do not want to ghost the person. They're a nice person, but you just don't have the chemistry for them. So, it's like, how do you? And I think what I'm getting at, I think that's a reason why a lot of women don't actually meet up because they're afraid. Because more chances than not, you're not going to hit it off, right? You got to kiss a lot of frogs expression. So, how do you politely just say, okay, sorry, we're not a match, but thank you?
Well, as I said, if there is a friend connection, then you can say, I would love to continue to hang out. But I'm not feeling, I'm just not feeling like this is something that is a connection for me, right? I'm not feeling it. Basically, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah, I'm not.
And the more you practice it, that's the other thing I was, doing, especially with the women that I work with as clients, is you have to practice this. It's not like it comes easy the first time, but neither did riding a bike. You skinned your knees. You were like, oh my God, I can't believe I said it that way. Or wanted to try to smile, but I was like, I really don't like you. It was so painful to try to just say that it was hurting me. And that's what across. But what they saw was, wow, she thinks I'm hideous. Look at that face she's giving. Right. But the other part of that is that you can also give yourself permission more and more as you practice to do a redo. In other words, I might say to you, I'm really not, and all of a sudden I go, God, I feel the face I'm making, and you must think, I think you're a monster. But that's just me being so uncomfortable because I like you as a person. That's my face talking to me. So I just wonder if I could try that again with you. Could I try it again? And you go, absolutely, because your face scared the heck out of me. Right. And then I just go, what I really wanted to say was, I think you're a really cool person, but I don't feel the kind of magnetism that I know I need to have in order to move forward in a relationship. And so, I could totally dig like having coffee with you and hanging out sometimes if that's something you'd like to do. But in terms of, being in relationship, at this point, it doesn't feel like it's there for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be always and forever.
Yep.
That may shift.
Right.
But if you're clear that it's always and forever, then say that. Then just be clear and don't like string a carrot out and say like, well, see if we hang out for a while, because then they're going to try too hard, and that never works either.
Yeah. And then they try to be the chameleon and morph into what they think you want.
But let me also address, you used a couple of words. You used one word that was like, how do you do it in being kind? And then you used another word about nice. There's a huge difference between kind and nice.
Oh boy. Okay, tell me.
So have you ever heard of Minnesota nice?
No.
Okay, so Minnesota nice, I grew up in the Midwest. So Minnesota nice is like, hey, how you doing? When I'm about to want to kill myself.
Yeah.
But I'm just acting like, it's all good. Hey, I'm fine.
Oh, wow. That's a thing? Okay, that's a thing.
That's more than a thing.
Yeah,
And
Minnesota nice.
If you try to let somebody down nicely, that's actually unkind.
Right.
Because it's not true. It's not authentic. And so a lot of times a person who's wanting to do that will lie, will oversell how beautiful or how interesting they think you are, but it's just not the right time for me. I just got a big work thing, and next 2 months I'm going to be super busy. I just realized, like, we go to these lengths, and the other person, we all know when the other person is not being authentic, and it's just like, God, why can't you just tell me like you're not feeling it? And so the difference between that and kindness is to say the hard thing. It's called sharing the non-share. What's the piece I really don't want to say right now? And you mentioned this earlier, and I have the experience that you do, that oftentimes it's because we simply lack the skill, but we lack the skill because we lack the practice.
Okay.
So how about if we just globally on all of these, these dating apps, how about a little more intelligence in the folks who are putting them on to help people with how do we actually do this skillfully, rather than just throwing these things up and making a lot of money on people's hopelessness, which is what's happening. Give some real skills into how do we have real conversations about it when it doesn't work? What are the possibilities where we can each grow more skillful at relationships when it doesn't work? I don't see that happening anywhere. And that's irresponsible.
And that's so important because the majority don't work, because that's just the way the game is. I mean, to find your special person isn't just gonna, like it's, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. So you just gotta kind of weed through. So what you're saying is so right on, because you need to know how to navigate through that with grace and dignity and honesty and fairness to both parties, and
somebody's going to need to create a site where they get over the ignorance and the fear that their cash cow is on me not getting what I need and keeping on that site for years. You see, that's like a bad therapist or a bad it's like, see you next week. 10 years later, like, oh yeah, he's a great therapist. I've been seeing him for 10 years. What? 10 years that's not a great therapist.
Yeah.
That's a great business person, but not even a great business person. The good model would be to create something that actually teaches people how to have a real conversation about when it doesn't work.
Yes.
It gives tutorials on this, because then I will be off your site sooner. But guess what? I'm going to tell a dozen of my friends who are looking for partners, don't go to any other dating site. Go to this one. It taught me how to actually have skilled conversation around when it doesn't work, and skilled conversation about the things that I need. So how willing, but sharing the non-share is not just the negative stuff, but the positive stuff, to say, you know what? I was married for 20 years and I never actually had the courage to tell my wife what pleases me. Wow. And when you and I have this conversation, I just need to tell you right now, this is what I like. And does that work for you? How about a basic conversation? I'm old enough now. I've been making love for enough years to where I know what I like and what I don't like. What are the things that you like? Let's start with what you like. And if you can talk to me about that, I already know, wow, we're going somewhere. If you go, no, let's get together next time.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
we may not actually have the capacity to, because I'm ready to have that conversation and you're not. So that's
Yep.
part of it, is being authentic with what's important to us. And I mean, I'll take you into what I would recommend for a conversation. Let's say you and I meet on one of these sites, like we get together. What I've suggested for sort of the order of operations, if you will, is to start at the top and work your way down. So starting at the top means I ask you, what's sacred to you in your life?
Wow.
What is really important to you? It could be philosophically, like what
You would say that at the very beginning of the relationship.
I would, because I
Awesome.
want to know, what practices do you have, for example? What keeps you sane? You can say this any way you want, but the bottom line is what's important to you.
Yep.
What are your non-negotiables?
Yes.
What are the three things where if I don't possess them, we shouldn't even take another sip of coffee?
Yep.
And let's find out what those things are. Why are we messing around? I've been on this site for 3 years. I'm freaking lonely. I don't want to just hook up. I've tried that. That sucked, right?
Yep.
I was even more lonely after that, not less. So how is it that we can actually come together on things that are the most important things for us? So, when you're just sitting around thinking about stuff, what do you think about? Do you you think about starting a new business? Do you think about how do you want to create a garden? Do you think about having children? Like, what are the things that we are thinking?
Mm-hmm.
So start there and then work your way down to when you're in communication with a partner, how do you tend to communicate? What things do you tend not to communicate?
Mm.
And then what's your love language? How do you express love? How do you want to be received?
Receive love.
Yeah, in love. And then what happens when you get under stress? What happens when emotions start to flare up? What emotions do come up? And what is anger? Is it like, from 0 to 10, is it like a 9 or like, is it like a 2? Cause you're always like pushing it down. Like, how does that tend to work? And have these conversations. And then what's the right use of power? What's your sense of power in a relationship? Do you have a sense that it actually is equal power, or do you have a sense that you tend to give more of your power away, or do you like to make sure that you have control in the relationship since you've been alone for whatever years? And then the last part of that is, what turns you on sexually, sensually? Intimacy, though. The sex is not intimacy. Sex is part of intimacy, but intimacy is the bigger piece. Yeah. And the cool thing is all the things that we just talked about while we're having tea, we're building toward that intimacy.
Yeah.
Because safety is needed for us to be intimate. Otherwise, we're not going to take the next step in opening up.
Yep.
And then shared interest is there. And then a feeling of excitement, like there's a potential here. This could actually go somewhere. And so my suggestion is always to wait, 3 dates to really go through and have those conversations with each other and have that be a part of the way that we communicate with each other. And realize that, for these people who are 40 and 50 and 60 years old, we don't need to spend 3 months or 3 years. Like we know what we like when we're this age, and we know what we don't like. So just say it.
Yep. Yes. I think, wow. I mean, ideally, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. And to me, what's coming to mind is just, it's about just not wasting anybody's time, right? Just, almost like get to it. And because there's no reason not to. But I just feel like there's so many people out there that just are trying to, put themselves into a pretzel to be what you want them to be. And it's like, no, just be you. Like, don't, sometimes it comes back to bite you when you tell someone what you really like, because then they try to be all that when that's not true to them. And then that's a disservice to them. I mean, that's on them, obviously. But then, it's like someone has to be, I think, a little bit evolved to meet you there with all of that. Like, and
Yeah, but all these conversations happen at the level of your evolve list, right?
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
the word, but
yeah.
like you and I are going to have the conversation at the level where we are. But if we find right away that there's a mismatch, that already tells us something,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, you like to go a lot deeper in your spiritual path than I do. Is it okay that I don't?
You're right. Yep.
I watch
Talking
football on
about you.
Sundays and you're meditating. Like,
Yeah.
but when I'm done with the football game and you're done meditating, do we drop in and have a nice conversation and spend some intimate time together? Or
Yep.
is it like two
Are you
ships in the
pissed?
night?
Yep.
Or are you pissed?
Yeah. 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 No, that's really good. That's so key. I love that. Well, I don't know. We'll see where the whole relationships go and, where the world is navigating. I feel like we're coming full circle after the COVID bubble and the Zoom and the online and all that. Like people are now really craving that in person, it's kind of snapping back a little bit. Thank goodness. So, what do you think?
I do think it's snapping back. I do think people are looking for that outside, and I think they're really doing a lot of self-searching inside. I just think we're in a pressure cooker, quite frankly,
Yeah.
in terms of relationship with ourselves, our God, our partners or potential partners. And I don't think we have any time to waste, and I don't think we have anything to lose anymore. Because in a way, like we've lost it all already. And so, when you got nothing to lose.
That's true. All right. So as we wrap up here, then on that note, coming through the end of the year, not sure when people are going to hear this, obviously, or watch this, but any thoughts for Dr. Edmund Knighton to close out the year? Just some words of wisdom for us to, like you just said, this pressure cooker. Oh boy, the world, there's just so much happening, right? But just any wise words for us, or if someone's hearing this in January, to start a new year,
Well, what I would say is, ideally this would come out in the time of the Holy Nights. My experience of the Holy Nights for the last 40 years has been that this is the most important time of the year.
Okay.
There is something so spiritually available for the quality of progressing along my life path, that from really like December 21st, from the time of the return of light, which really light is wisdom, light is clarity in thinking.
Light is information too.
Light is information, right? And it's literally in formation. It moves to us and through us, and it enlightens us as it does that, and then keeps on going and enlightens everything else in its path.
That's so cool.
The 12 holy nights are an opportunity to pay attention to your dreams each evening, to the dream time, because each one of those dreams, so starting on December 25th and moving into the first week in January when Epiphany occurs, is a kind of presentiment toward the month that's upcoming. So for the 25th, the first evening of Christmas evening, that is for the month of January. And so waking up and immediately paying attention to your dream life for that activity is a wonderful way to give you a sense of what's coming for you, for your soul in the year to come. The other is, as I mentioned, each one of these, you can look up, Rudolf Steiner he talks about it in Human and Cosmic Thought. It's a 4-lecture cycle, these 12 different points of view. But you could also look it up like on a website. I think it's called The Philosophy of Freedom. There's a guy who's detailed out the different kinds of thinking, the 12 kinds of thinking. And the idea is to see if you can open yourself up to materialistic thinking on one particular evening, to open yourself up on the next evening to spiritual thinking, but to go around the wheel, if you will, each of the 12 nights to see if you can broaden your capacity for your thought life. Because again, to be in relationship, not just in a sexual relationship for intimacy, but with friends, with colleagues, with family members, everyone is coming from a particular thought stream. And you being flexible in being able to adopt those and think them, recognizing that they're just a thought form. It's not, you don't have to believe it because you're thinking it.
Right.
Let yourself think it. And that gives you a kind of a thought power. But the biggest thing is it gives you relationality. It gives you in relationship with the whole world of humanity. And you'll be amazed to see that you're not suffering somebody anymore and just waiting until it's over. You actually can find something to be nurtured by in every conversation.
Wow.
That's what's amazing. There's a verse called Desiderata that says, listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant, for they too have their story. And so this Desiderata poem is a picture of how is it that I can be in the shopping line and, somebody in front of me looks just, slovenly and smells and is, has a 12-pack of Coors and a loaf of white bread. And, I just notice all these different opportunities for me to have a particular story about this person. What if I just drop all that and say, hey, how's it going?
That's so nice.
And you're always, you run the risk of being amazed.
Right.
If this person has thoughts that are beyond what you ever thought about something in particular. So you get to
run the risk of being corrected.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Pleasantly
surprised about your preconceptions of the way the world is and the way this person must be based on the way that they look. And we're back to the murderer picture that you really, that we have the capacity to be a murderer. We have to. And if we don't have that, then we don't have freedom. Just as we have the capacity to be an avatar, to be an enlightened human being, we have to have the full range of human action within us. And so if we're disowning the murderer in us, we are disempowered. That is actually a form of weakness, because what's real is we do have that option right now in this moment. Like I have, I'm a hunter, so I have rifles and I have pistols and, I could be a murderer. I could be a self-murderer. We have that option. And let's just recognize that. And then we'll have less judgment for the individual who did that. And then we won't have a penal system that is just a business. And again, kind of like Tinder, it just keeps coming back. Recidivism is the soup du jour. You're a lifetime criminal because we're not giving those individuals the skills. We're not working with them therapeutically. You don't become a murderer unless you have seen or experienced something that is so heinous that it needs love and support around it rather than this kind of punishment and incarceration. That's a very code of Hammurabi, eye for an eye. And we're still lost in that. And so the Christ principle, this Jesus as an initiate, them moving toward each other, Jesus represents the original human being who didn't have any of this, was untouched by it. What we all were in our innocence and what we still are inside. This Christ principle represents the higher nature of moving so far beyond humanity, having so much love and wisdom and coming back toward it. And during these 12 holy nights, you have the opportunity not necessarily to get this intellectually, but if you just think about it and dwell in the mood, the feeling of it, it's like your heart and your mind weave themselves together in your body in a way during these 12 holy nights that the rest of the year can't even get close to.
And so, why is that? What is it about because we did the show with Laura J, and it was amazing. We get into the whole thing, and I'll mention that too, and we'll put it in the notes for everybody to check that out. But I'd like to hear your take on why those 12 or 13 days of all 365 are the most potent.
Yeah. So this is the time when, see how to encapsulate this. When individuals who throughout time, whether it's been Hermes in Egypt or Zarathustra in Persia, these individuals rose to a certain level of awareness that they could experience during this time of year, what's called the sun at midnight or the invisible sun. And so what that is those individuals became what would be called a sixth-degree initiate. And a sixth-degree initiate is someone who's able not only to represent their nation. A fifth-degree initiate would represent their nation. So you would be called an American, for example, as an initiate, if you were able to represent America, not as an outward leader, by the way, but as an inner guide for your nation, because you bear such a faithfulness to the sort of signature of what it means to be an American.
Okay.
Not in nationalism, not over and against other nations, but in your own heart, you carry such a wisdom of what's called the zeitgeist, the spirit of America, that there's actually an overlighting spirit of people. And it's a different spirit than other peoples have.
Mm-hmm.
Have a connection with that being.
Mm.
Now, rise to the level beyond that, from the fifth degree to a sixth degree, you carry in your heart the capacity to carry that toward a love of all humanity.
Okay.
The individuals who get to that level are able to nurture and give back to the rest of us, particularly at this time of year when we dwell in that thought and open our hearts to that possibility. So the Jesus initiate, the Christ stream, Hermes, Zarathustra, Buddha, there are many, many names of initiates who got to the level of being Christian Rosenkreuz, a holder for humanity, and being able to say, I take responsibility for our race as humans to move and evolve together. I will hold and care for. And during these particular nights and days, this is when that is the most active and the most possible for sort of the local suckers like you and me, the normal people, to be fed by that, to be inspired by that.
Okay.
And it starts to slowly work on us in ways that we can't even imagine, because this goes way beyond our intellect. The intellect just isn't suited to actually take this information in. But our bodies are the oldest and wisest body that we have of the physical, energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual body. The physical body can actually be nurtured by this. This is why the Christ entered the spiritual stream of humanity, penetrated the secrets of the skeleton and really of the structure of the earth, in order for that movement to evolve, for the earth herself to evolve, as well as for humanity to evolve. And there is wisdom and insight that comes during these 12 holy nights. And it comes through a kind of intelligence, not an intellect, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like a whole body listening. There's a feeling, there's a mood that you can start to feel as you open yourself to that mood. And I have to just say, it's the most incredible experience imaginable.
So obviously you do this every year, And then I know Laura was mentioning when she came on the show that, you know, it's amazing to her for their clients and her family and her friends. They look back and it's very predictive. Like they look back in retrospect and be like, oh, yep, that happened then and that happened then. And, you know, it's very accurate. Have you found similar things like when you look back at the
regions? Very much so. Not only that, but there are different connections that are possible with very exalted beings. And so one picture is that it's important to get to bed early, so 8 or 9 o'clock as much as possible, because every hour before midnight is like 2 hours in terms of physical restfulness. But there's also a connection that takes place with your own personal teacher or angel or avatar, or whatever it is that you feel, your guides, your spirit guides, that takes place at the midnight hour during each of these holy nights in particular.
Oh.
And in the middle of these holy nights, there is a kind of connection to not only that angelic presence, but more of a direct connection with the spirit that overlights our nation, for example, more of an archangelic presence or a Michaelic presence.
Wow.
And again, all of these things are taking place in a kind of either unconscious or semi-conscious state. But the goal is to become more and more aware of the fact that these things are taking place. They're taking place throughout the whole year, but they're less noticeable. The mood is not as present as it is. And this is particularly in the Northern Hemisphere right now.
Yeah.
So just to be clear about that.
And I was just thinking that because it correlates with, this is how you open the show, was talking about the depths of winter and the silence and the darkness and, the womb feeling. And, it really, it facilitates that much more. I mean,
the predominance of human beings, I think, I don't know whether, I can't remember the percentage, but maybe in the 80s in terms of the percentage that live in the northern part of the planet. And then, there's much fewer in the southern part. So a lot of focus gets put on that. But there is a reversal, and that's a spiritual reversal that happens in not just in this, but in all things. Just like when we feel joy, we want to bring sadness. And that third space arises, and we recognize, oh, I'm just witnessing joy and sadness. And there's something third that's arising as a result of me witnessing both, without leaning away from sadness and without leaning toward joy. I'm just keeping centered.
Okay, so I know we're closing, but just on that point. So I'm just visualizing consciously trying to bring sadness when I'm actually really experiencing joy. I mean, why would anyone in their right mind want to dampen it? Because it doesn't happen. I mean, happiness, yeah, joy is an exalted emotion, right? So why would we want to dampen that?
So you haven't experienced it, but you do, as a human being, make an assumption that it dampens it. Why do you assume that?
Oh, because I guess I would be thinking about feeling sad to try to balance it.
You've already freed yourself by the very notion that you're offering sadness in your experience. Your sort of picture, like
okay,
right? Sadness could be more blue, and maybe it's more yellow if it's joy. You're already freeing yourself from not just the joy, but also the sadness by consciously practicing this exercise.
I see. So it's about removing yourself from it.
It's in a way, it's about immersing yourself in both, experiencing both, but recognizing that there's this third thing that's opening up in the middle, which is this feeling of freedom. It's a feeling of unswayed toward either needing to feel joy,
not attached to it. I see.
Yeah. For Buddhism, it's like craving and aversion, where we tend to lean toward one and avoid the other, and both of them throw us off center.
And that makes sense, because then you'll cling to it. You're trying to grasp and hold on to joy, and then you squeeze the life out of it. Yeah, I got you. Okay, I got that. Sorry, I just had to.
No, it's a great question. Because we do have this fear that it will dampen the feeling. And isn't it so funny? We don't have that concern, like, well, when I add joy to sadness, like, oh, no problem there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you see that there's a fallacy in the actual experience, because both of those experiences lead us toward feeling unswayed, feeling spaciousness, and just noticing when these thoughts or feelings arise at the Thanksgiving table. Now I can just notice, wow, rage is really arising in me, and I have a whole new relationship of freedom, and the rage is still there.
I love that. It's true. It's about the freedom. I love that. That is
it's about
incredible.
I
Who
get
would
to
have thought of it that way.
Get to feel those things.
Yeah.
And
you have a darkness retreat coming up.
I do. I have a darkness retreat. What is that? June 15th in Aspen.
2026, June, depending when people watch or listen to this. Okay, so it's a retreat that's open to the public. People can go if they want to. And just tell us quickly here as we close, what is the purpose of the darkness retreat? What can people expect? Who's it for?
Yeah, it's actually, because it's 6 months from now, it's when the light is brightest outwardly. And this is also a wonderful way to feel the inner sense of spaciousness and darkness when the light is so bright outside of us. And so that's the thing that we're feeling, is that takes place. And a lot of what you're sort of harvesting from the holy nights can be revisited with this incredible sense of lightness and brightness around it. So there's, in the middle of the retreat, there is a time of darkness. And then there are exercises that we do out in nature with blindfolds on, in order to orient to an outer landscape, but then you transfer that awareness to your inner landscape. And then we spend a day or two integrating whatever experience you had in darkness at the end of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. Someday I might join you for that, but that's very intimidating. I think being in the dark, what's it, 24
It's intimidating for everyone. I mean, everyone's actually nervous about it when
Of course.
yeah, there isn't anybody who comes in and says, "Oh, I've got
Yes.
this."
No
Yeah.
problem. Okay. And then the February event, the Be Human.
Yeah. Jared Picard is a great colleague of mine, and we're doing a being human piece, which is focused on Rudolf Steiner's 6 exercises. And the exercises, as I mentioned earlier, are meant really for protecting oneself from all negative effects of all spiritual exercises, which is it's a pretty big statement to make. But I've been working with her for 40 some odd years, and I very much experienced that.
You experienced what? The protection?
Yeah, the sense of protection through doing
Excellent.
these exercises. And Steiner's picture is that the exercises are really the foundation for anything that he's brought, and that they will be what's left over, even if all of his other work dies away. This will be something we'll be practicing in his estimation for thousands of years, which is how do we guide our thinking? How do we guide our feelings? How do we guide our will forces in a way that we are free? And so these are, we give very practical exercises. I develop exercises from his work around this.
This is such an important offering. I mean, what a gift to humanity. This is incredible. And this is an online thing that anybody can take.
Yep. It's an online thing anybody can take. Yep. You just reach out to Jared and tell me.
Okay. So we'll put that in the show notes, everybody. And I told you, I'm planning on signing up for that myself. So, okay. And how can people find you?
They can just reach out to 10th Wanderer at gmail.com if they want to.
And why 10th?
Why 10th? Well, my birthday is 10/10. 10 is a very special time for me. And so it felt intuitive.
Perfect. Wanderer. I love it. Okay, everybody, that's all in the show notes for you. And don't forget to check out Dr. Knighton's first appearance, episode 271. We talk about spiritual intercourse and more on the holy nights, which Laura calls the 13 sacred nights or the holy nights. And that's 245, episode 245, Awakening Aphrodite podcast. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Again, this has been amazing. The time flew by, and I'm just super grateful. This is, wow, you've given me a lot to think about. I'm going to have some crazy dreams tonight.
You might indeed.
Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. We'll see you next time.